Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on this glorious evening. Special treat for you. We will have the first episode of Banghead History. I'm, of course, Gregor Guy, joined by Mr. Cuz and Mr. Casey. I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of excited for this.
I'm intrigued.
I love it. So, obviously, I'm going to toss it over to Casey, and we'll go from there.
Alright, so first episode, Banghead History. Going between names, I'm thinking Breaking Narratives or something like that. It'll be fleshed out.
Breaking Bad?
Not Breaking Bad. We're not over here making drugs.
Do I have thumbnails for that one?
So the first episode...
Sorry.
The first episode is going to be about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Okay.
First of all, I want to put out my citations, the websites that I looked up, factcheck.org, npr.org, and a small section of something that came out of the Washington Post.
Okay.
Second off, I want to go just a basic overview of the history, in case anybody isn't aware. 1981, Israel bombed a nuclear reactor in Iraq. And Iraq, at that point, denied that it was a weapon-based facility. 1983, there was the war between Iraq and Iran. Iraq used chemical weapons against the Iranians within that war. Ultimately, Iraq lost the war and had to move out from the invasion. In 1988, Iraq gassed its own population during a Kurdish rebellion.
I actually remember that.
In 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. And then I wanted to go with the first question I have for people. Do you think after the U.S. went to Kuwait and removed the Iraqis from Kuwait, do you think that George H.W. Bush should have gone in and removed Saddam Hussein at that point in time?
At that point in time, yeah. I mean, the obvious answer to that question, I believe, is yes.
Okay. What do you think?
I think Saddam, this might be controversial, I think Saddam would have gave structure to that country.
His own people killed him.
I know, but look at what's going on right now.
Okay.
So basically, what the Americans were thinking, I think I can't say this for sure, but they have had previous deals in cooperation in the past with Saddam Hussein with his oil and prices, and they figured it would stabilize and it would go back
from each other.
They were trying to go back to normal.
Right,
they were
so
trying
he
to go
was
back to the way it was.
essentially a businessman at one point in time.
Who's that?
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein has always been a warlord.
Right, but he likes money and he likes power. And America was
Hence the warlord.
Right.
dealing with him at one point in time.
He was not content on just being in Iraq and making billions of dollars. He wanted to
didn't
take
like
over.
Baghdad.
Yeah.
He wanted to go south.
Yeah.
He wanted to continue to grow and create his own empire.
He wanted coastline property.
And second of all, the main. Does anybody here know what the main reason why Iraq attacked Kuwait in the first place was, other than him wanting to try to control the area?
What, to get that beachfront property? He wanted the port.
What kind of resource did he want?
There was a lot of wanted the
port.
There was the possibility he may have wanted the port, but Kuwait was overproducing oil and driving the oil prices down. Is what Saddam's biggest beef was. He wanted to raise the price of oil so that he could make
kind of like
money
shut down a Keystone pipeline, huh?
Crazy what resources do to people.
Okay. Next after that, in '91, after the United States removed Iraq from Kuwait, there was a resolution for Iraq to not be able to possess or have or attempt to create weapons of mass destruction. That includes nuclear and chemical weapons.
Which, I mean, just for clarification, which they already used in the previous year on their own people, on the Kurds, correct?
Correct.
Just making sure we're on the same page.
So ultimately, time and again, with a lot of backlash, or not really backlash, but maybe complaints and refusals of inspectors coming into the country. Ultimately, most of, if not all of, the weapons of mass destruction that was controlled by Iraq were destroyed. There was minimal ability or attempts to try to gain those nuclear and chemical weapons throughout the years, but there was no clear evidence that it was ever gained by the Iraqis. And then during the after 9/11, after the attacks, George Bush, the son of George H.W. Bush, became the president of the United States, and there was conflicting evidence that Iraq had gained chemical weapons again, or nuclear, and partially the evidence in this report was that they had aluminum tubes. And this was mostly all brought about by aluminum tubes, and many of the... Okay. So there was a 92-page report on whether they had weapons of mass destruction.
Okay.
Now, the legislature, they brought it down to a 5-page summary. A 5-page summary on whether or not Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And reported by the Washington Post that no more than 6 senators and a handful of representatives, according to aides, read beyond the summary. And one of the senators that did read the entire thing emphatically urged everybody in the Senate and the House of Representatives to read the full 92-page report that was put out there. Now, do you feel like reading a 92-page report should be something that should have been done for the legislative to create an act of war on another country rather than 5 pages?
That would be assuming that, senators and elected members to the House of Representatives can actually read.
True.
And do their job that they get paid highly for.
So they boiled down 92 pages down to 5 pages in order to vote for an act of war. Which, by the way, wasn't an act of war. We were never truly at war with Iraq.
Right, but it was the war on terror, all that bullshit, right?
Right, but it's coded. There was never voted an act of war on terrorism either.
Resources.
Yeah,
Secondly, did you have a question about the aluminum tubes?
I did. So basically you said that they found these aluminum tubes, correct?
Right.
And they assumed that they were weapons of mass destruction.
They were imported. So it's
okay.
The
imported from
tubes,
where?
I don't know where they were imported.
Okay. So they were imported into Iraq?
Right.
Okay. Number 1, red flag. Number 2, so basically the soda can that I drank earlier and threw away could technically be considered an aluminum tube, correct?
No, there's different types of aluminum.
So, the aluminum tubes are not generally, but when they are used with nuclear power, they are used for enriching uranium. But the Department of Energy, in their report, they believe that these were used for rocket launchers and not used for enriching enriching uranium.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't get drone strike over my Cherry Coke Zero. That's
Right.
it.
So I didn't know. So.
Because of the backlash of all these elected representatives voting for war against Iraq and not finding throughout the many years of war waged on that country by the United States of America
Under 2 bushes.
under 2 Bushes,
Was there a plan?
ever since then, use of force has not been voted on by the legislative branch. At this point, it has been completely under the president's authority to strike violently at other countries without any form of legislature. With no declaration of war, we can just go from country to country and bomb them as long as the president says it's okay. One man is in control of the switch to say, bomb and kill these people. Should the president have the authority without any
Backlash.
form of backup or anything like that, and without the legislators being at fault, now they can agree with it, and they cannot be at fault. They can go to their constituents and say,
first of all,
disagree
they're
with it.
already out of the fucking discussion because,
Right.
As you said, the president, I assume, meets with his security council or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, we got this terrorist. Drone strike.
Right.
Done. Guess what? And the American public doesn't even hear about it for like the next week.
Right.
I mean, he does have the power, and if he
But
persuade it in a different way.
Should he have the power, though? Should he be able to just blow up people?
Right, okay.
In any
At the same
country he
point in
wants
time,
to.
if it is actually a legitimate threat to the American people,
You believe he should.
well, I mean, I'm not advocating for or against, but if they are, like, the question is, how do you ascertain who is a legitimate threat to the American people?
You don't think there should be some kind of security council of elected officials that you can sit into
Of
a
elected
room?
officials, right?
Of
Not
elected
necessarily
officials.
military officials,
Right.
which are basically what the Security Council is
Right.
for the president.
Of elected officials that that should all be contacted before a violent military
At the same
strike
point in
should occur.
time, how often does that person get away in that point in time? Over how long does that all take?
Do you think? Do
I
you,
mean,
do you even
it's
do we
time
even think
constrained.
that the president even makes those decisions? Do we think that there's a military
Anytime lethal
clause?
strike is authorized, the president signs off on
I
it.
think he can.
Every single time.
Yes, but
Every
can
single
he
time.
be
You think every single
persuaded?
time?
Every single time.
You think every time
I'm
a drone
fairly
fucking
certain-
strike happens,
I'm fairly certain
the president
it's
says
law.
go do it?
Yeah, but he's
I'm
been
fairly
persuaded.
certain it
Well,
is
isn't
law.
it against the law to fucking bomb a country that we're not at war with?
Isn't it against the law to fly 2 helicopters into Pakistan and go kill Osama bin Laden?
Right? A country that we are friendly with. And we did directly near a military base in Pakistan.
But, hey, I mean, guess what? You were hiding that motherfucker. Go fuck yourself.
Morals and rules are meant to be broken if it benefits the rest of humanity. At a point.
Well,
You know
I
what
mean, there's a humanitarian thing and there's a political thing.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of layers on that.
Well, that's an objective statement as well, because you might believe that something's necessary for the security of this country, and another person might not.
Okay, so Osama bin Laden blowing up thousands, if not hundreds.
What
of
was he
thousands.
doing right then? He was a
let's
symbol.
throw
That's
that
all he
away.
was.
I mean, that was just an example. Let's
Right.
Right. But you're security measuring that. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I mean, more or less to talk about like other terrorists.
yeah, but you're trying to prevent that.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like, there's no morals in that. It's like, do I let them eventually, even if they don't want to, destroy X amount of people, or I destroy them? There's no.
So let me.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Man. It's tough.
So let me ask a question. There's a. I mean, this is slightly different. It's not completely on the same line. If you know a guy is constantly violent and he's done his time and he gets out of prison, I mean, obviously he didn't do time. He didn't go to prison. He had to run. He had to run for his life for a very long time. I'm talking about Saddam Hussein, or not Saddam Hussein, but Osama bin Laden.
Okay, well, what does that have to do with the guy that did time and was in prison?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
confused.
It's
Osama bin
not
Laden
100%. It's
didn't
not 100% going to line up. But
He did.
Right. You think that
People can't change?
right?
Is that what you're asking?
I'm not saying 100% that people can't change, because some people can.
Some people.
Right.
Very few.
Okay, well, going off that, you're saying that, let's just take, for example, Saddam Hussein, who used chemical weapons
Right.
on his own people, should be given a second chance? Stupid.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in if you did anything violent, the violence
Something
should
that
be
bad.
put on
Something that bad. I mean, that is war crimes.
That's true.
Those are war crimes.
That's true.
Flying an airplane
they
into
didn't-
a building is a war crime.
Right.
in my opinion.
That had something to do with the United States, but I'm talking about the chemical weapons attacks in a foreign country.
War crime.
Had nothing to do with us.
It has nothing to do with us, but it was still a war crime.
Are we the police? Are we the police of the world?
No, I don't think we should be.
But we shouldn't let people run amok that have done something horrible in the past because they can do it again in the future.
All right, what else?
That's basically it.
All right, well, thank you boys for, joining, us here on Mr. Casey's first episode of Banghead History.
Yes.
I actually kind of like that name. We're, might have to
I like it.
tweak it a little bit, but that does sound genius.
Okay, so-
I, of course, have Gregor Guy joined here by Mr. Cuz and Mr. Casey,
Like always.
his brainchild.
I like
Good
it.
job. I
The
appreciate
gears
it.
are turning.